Well, good morning. Oh, come on. Good morning. There we are. That's much better. You guys having fun so far? Isn't this a great show? What a great use of money and time and place. Like, what a, you guys are awesome. I don't know about you, but did you guys like the keynote yesterday? We've been talking about a lot about boot. How many of you had heard of boot prior to coming to this show? So we're not doing a terrible job. How many of you have, deployed to production and just love it? Awkward. Well, we're going to get you started on the journey for that now. I'll be sort of moderating a panel later on. If you don't mind a shameless plug, I'll be moderating a panel with Ticketmaster and Netflix. These are two very large organizations that have already made the journey to production with Spring Boot. So if you want to see what they're doing, consider that as a sort of one nice destination, one nice place to be at that time. Okay, so shall we get underway?
I think you should, yeah.
Right, so who are you?
Hi, I'm Phil Webb. I am one of the co-leads of Spring Boot. I pretty much work on it full-time now. I'm also a committer on the core Spring framework as well. I've worked for Spring for a little while now, 2 or 3 years.
Full-time and a half.
Full-time and a half.
Yeah, no such thing as weekends in open source. And I'm Josh. Nice to meet you. I'm the developer advocate for the open source Spring technologies here at Pivotal, which segues rather nicely into this. I know this is a ridiculously unnecessary slide, but it might actually be necessary. How many of you have heard of Pivotal? Okay. You guys know we're not at VMware, and we have all these great open source technologies, and we're part of a new home, a new family. This new mission, if you will, is really, really, really cool. We've got a lot of great things in the works, and even from when we got out of the gate, we had a lot of things that we wanted to do, right? And a big part of that was to sort of simplify the development experience, to really, really, really simplify things, to make it as easy and powerful as possible. And so I think if you'll, is that about right? Is that kind of the naissance of Boot?
Definitely.
Yeah. So Boot was born out of that fire to make make everything as easy as possible, to really, really radically simplify the developer's experience. Spring has always done a good job of that, but with Pivotal, I think it's like we turned it to 11. I mean, it's really, really. Oh God, come on! No Spinal Tap references? Okay, like 3 people. So anyway, that's sort of genesis of Boot. You're gonna see that in action. You've already seen it, I'm sure. Has any talk you've seen so far not used Boot? Let's just ask that way. Besides maybe some of the Grails 2.0 stuff, but even that is going there. Yeah. Okay. It's a thing. It's a thing. So that's Boot. Boot is about simplification. You want to add anything else to that?
No.
Okay. We have worked very hard on these slides. There's almost 10 of them. So enjoy. So we'll start with getting started, which is an important part of the mission here. There's a lot of ways to go. How many of you guys have seen our snazzy Spring Initializer? Oh, come on. Yes, yes. Oh, this should be like your homepage, and I recognize that it isn't on mine, but it is on my other Google Chrome profile. So, so this is the Initializer. This is a great place to start your day, your projects, whatever. It's a little bit of code generation. How many of you think about Boot and think code gen? Because I want to dispel that right now. There's no code gen. Except for this. This is the maximum code gen we're going to do. So the idea is you go to this Initializer, specify the group ID, the artifact, the project name, all the sort of usual Maven proforma stuff that you have to do anyway. It doesn't even have to be Maven, by the way. You could choose Gradle. You could choose just to have a Gradle build or a Maven POM instead of an actual project. You can choose the type of workload, the type of packaging you want for your application. Jar is what's selected by default, and I think you should leave it there. Show of hands, Java 1.8. Oh, that's not the numbers I wanted to see, guys. How many are you in Java 4? 1.4. Let's just start with that. Going the other way around. 1.4, anybody? Okay. 1.5. 1.6. So you know that Java 6 is end of life, folks? I'm just going to put that there. It's end-of-lifed. It's not that you want to move to a newer Java. It's that you have to for the security and the integrity of your business. Go to your managers with that. Java 7. OK, now we're cooking, sort of. But how many of you are within, reach of Java 8? Would it just take a beer with the boss? I mean, OK, Java 8, man, go for it. It's really, really nice. Even I can do it. So if I can do it. Java and Groovy, right? Spring Boot 1.16 is the latest and greatest stable hotness, but there's also 1.20, just
now,
like a minute ago, or a week and a minute ago. And then you can choose the kind of workload, the kind of application you'd like to build. So here we can say I want to build an application that works with JPA, or perhaps deals with the web. I want to use Spring MVC. Perhaps I want to do batch processing or whatever. Maybe I want a view template. You choose the style of workload that you want to deal with, and the result is you can generate a project, or you can use the CLI. I'm going to choose the project first, and what that gives you is this little zip file here. Okay, pasting that there. S2GX. Okay. Unzip. And then I won't bore you too much with the details here, but what you get is a handy-dandy, convenient little project. Actually, I'll just do this. OK. Can you all see that? There we are. It's a Maven build, standard stuff, nothing particularly fancy. You have your public, your source main Java and resources folders. A demo package with an empty Java, otherwise empty Java class that has just a few lines here. Whoops. These are public static void main, spring.application, spring application.run, passing in the class, and then the arguments to the class, right? The arguments to public static void main, because you might need that later. Notice that we're starting with public static void main first, right? This isn't we don't assume web. We don't even assume a server of some sort. This is Java config. Show of hands. Java config. Yes or no? OK, that's good. These numbers are getting better year by year, but still makes me sad here and here to see those hands not up. So please consider Java config. It really is a smooth ride. It's really, really good. It's only been around for like 8 years. So please consider it for your next project. At component scan, this is basic Java config. At configuration tells Spring that this is a configuration class in which bean definitions might or might not exist. It's the same thing for all intents and purposes as an XML document that you pass into the constructor of an application context. We don't have any beans in here, but if we did, they'd look something like @bean, foo, like that. And you can use this bean definition method to define the bean, right? And it's really nice because you can express anything you want. You can do all sorts of stuff that we don't have in the XML DSL, like while loops and if statements and conditions. All that stuff can be here. If you have other beans that you want to collaborate with, this is just a refresher. You can do bar, like so. And there's one bean that I want to depend on, and this bean needs a reference to that bean. So I can say, pass a reference to bar, like so. And I can use that to satisfy the constructor or fields or whatever I need for this bean. So that's basic configuration. That's what this annotation says. Component scan is the equivalent of context : component -scan in the XML. It just tells Spring to search the current package or all the packages beneath it and find beans annotated with the Spring 2.5 stereotype annotations. At component, at controller, at service, at repository, etc. And beans annotated with annotations that are themselves meta-annotated with stereotype annotations. So these two should be pretty familiar. It's this guy you should pay attention to. This is a Spring Boot-ism, @enable autoconfig. I think that it should have been renamed I want to go home early. It tells Spring Boot that you could use some help, that you've got work to do and people to see, and you don't want to spend time, toiling when you can avoid it. This says to Spring Boot, do everything you can possibly do based on convention and sort of contextual assumptions to help me. okay? And we'll look at what that means later, but this is what you want. This is the key to the magic. So once that's in place, Spring Boot, turns Spring Boot on, and that's good. It's like a, I like to say, and others, I hope they don't hate saying it, but it's like pair programming with people from the Spring team at this point, right? This is your 911 button. You get help. Okay, so that's a basic public static void main. You've also got this resources directory. You've got an empty properties file. Again, you may or may not use it. You've got an empty static directory in which you might place JavaScript and images and CSS and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, good, okay. Did you guys see Phil's amazing talk on web apps with Spring Boot yesterday? Whew. Okay.
The good news is I'm on a Mac today, so it will be a bit smoother than yesterday's.
Or worse, who knows?
Well, yeah.
Then you've got the empty obligatory test class. You guys all do test, right? Okay. Sometimes I'm being facetious. Sometimes I'm not. So just raise your hands just in case. Here's the empty, basic unit test. It's already, written to start up the Spring application context centered at the application class that we looked at before. And that's basically it. We have nothing offensive in the Java code. We have empty directories and an empty property file. The real sort of interesting bit here is, I think, this Maven POM. First things first, we've got the stuff we had specified in that wizard. It's all here now. And we have a parent declaration. This parent declaration points to Spring Boot starter parent, which is a Maven parent POM that has a dependency management section for all the common libraries and dependencies you're likely going to need. How many of them are there now? Hundreds? I mean, we don't import everything. We just specify the versions. They're all harmonized for you, right? This is sort of the precursor and very much, I think, the model that the Spring I/O platform distribution takes. So you can use this for harmonization of all the dependencies across all the different Spring projects that you want to use that are supported by Spring Boot. The Spring I/O platform distribution, which Jürgen talked about on the Monday night keynote, is very much the same thing, just a larger set of dependencies that may or may not be Spring Boot specific or used by Spring Boot. And the benefit of this is now you can start to pull in those pesky common third-party libraries that don't necessarily work well together or don't know about each other. We've harmonized them, we've integrated them, we've tested that they are compatible with each other. So for example, how many of you are using, and it's okay, again, nothing to be ashamed of, you're among friends. How many of you are using Hibernate? Okay, well, it's a thing, so that's okay. But the thing is, Hibernate's not particularly good at maintaining backwards compatibility with themselves, let alone other things, and minor releases, no less. So having this parent POM manage and stipulate fixed versions that work well with common releases of the projects is very, very valuable. And it's freeing, because look at our dependencies. Look at our Maven POM here. We have 3 dependencies, one for JPA, one for web, and one for unit testing. These are starter dependencies. So contrast this with the regular approach that the Spring projects take for obvious logical reasons. Most Spring projects compile against a set of dependencies that they need, but they don't include those in the Maven POM. For example, look at the ORM module inside of Spring Core. Spring Core supports JPA, it supports Hibernate, it supports JDO. Do you guys remember JDO? Nobody does. Well, you too, man, you, me. Hugs. There's a lot of technologies out there, and they're all supported by the ORM module, not to mention the JDBC support and the JDBC module, et cetera. So it'd be crazy, it would be insane if you imported the Spring ORM module and that intransitively imported Hibernate 4 and 3 and the small minor revisions that are supported in between, and it transitively imported JPA, and it transitively imported JDO, right? So it makes sense that we don't include those jars. But the result is that you, the consumer of those jars, have to sort of piece it together yourself, right, with the regular Spring modules. With Boot, we go a different direction. We say, let's just provide a POM that can transitively import a known working set of dependencies for a given workload, a given style of application. So these starters are opinionated. They give you everything you need to get going really, really quickly with JPA out of the box. It's going to be the latest and greatest Hibernate. It's going to have the transaction support you need. It's going to have JPA support. It's going to have all that stuff set up for you on the class path. Same thing for the Spring Boot Start a Web module, right? This brings in everything you're likely going to need to get started building web applications right now. Same thing for the unit test. And notice that we didn't actually have to specify unit tests here. It's just sort of assumed. So this otherwise those two jars, those two dependencies, correspond to the checkbox on this wizard. JPA there, web here, okay? So that's a simple boot project. You can get the same functionality inside of Spring Tool Suite. How many of you are using a Spring Tool Suite? It's awesome, possum, good stuff. Okay, so there's a new wizard in, what is it, 3.4? It's been around for...
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, so it might be 3.4. Anyway, you can go to File, New, Spring Starter Project. Wait for it. Okay, and you get the same thing, basically. Okay, so this is actually a UI that is a front end to the web service that I just showed you. It's the same thing. It doesn't do anything else besides call that web service for you and download the zip and then import it. So this is one great way to get started with Spring Boot. How many of you guys have played with the guides? The Spring I/O guides? Oh, they're so good. You guys should check that. I mean, we should share this stuff with you after you've left the conference and already paid. But look at these guides. These are great, man. Spring.io/guides. So you go to the website here, as fast as our little Wi-Fi can take us. Go, go, go. And you get these little guides. These are, you want to get started building a RESTful web service? Who doesn't? Click on the first one. And you have this very sort of easy to digest. It should take maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You could do it at lunch, you know, get your mental and physical nutrition every day at noon. And these guides are just sort of a very basic, no frills introduction to one thing and one thing only. We make no assumptions at all. There's no context assumed except that you want to learn and you maybe know Java. So we say, here's what you're going to build, a web service that responds on this endpoint with this response and maybe takes these parameters and so on. We stipulate what you're going to need to be able to follow the exercises and so on. And then there's a GitHub repository. These projects are all backed by GitHub, so there's an empty directory there you can follow along with to sort of seed the project and then follow along with, and a complete one against which you can check your work. The nice thing about all these guides is that most of them are built with boot as well. So if you're looking for how to do something and you want to, you know, hello, the heck? Yeah, there we are. If you want to build an application that talks to Facebook or uploads files or works with RabbitMQ or talks to Twitter or manages JMS or does hypermedia or talks to Gemfire or does MVC or Reactor or whatever, there's a guide here. And these are not all just Spring ecosystem projects. These are things that we expect people in the community will want to use with Spring. So for example, jQuery or Sencha or what have you, right? So you can choose these all from the website. And most of them have a Spring Boot-based project. You can also get those in here. So you go File, New, Import Spring Getting Started Content. And again, that saves you the website visit. You just click on the associated guide, and it'll import the project for you, and you can follow along the tutorial inside the IDE. Obviously, this is an STS-specific feature, but you can use it outside of it, outside of STS if you like as well. So, OK, what else do we want to cover? Oh, the Spring command line.
No, I think we need to move on.
Really?
Yeah, we've seen some demos of that already at the keynote.
Okay.
Let's get on, otherwise we're going to...
Sadness.
Yeah.
OK, so that's how you get started. I think that's very valuable. Moving on. Good. Next. So
shall I explain a little bit about the...
Yes, please.
OK, we're gonna do something a bit different and not...
More serious tone.
We're not really going to explain too much. We're just going to kind of develop an app so that you can see what the kind of general flow is. And Pivotal, we like to solve really complicated, big problems,
Ambitious.
Big data, cloud scale, agile, all these things. So we were thinking about a demo that encapsulates these ideas. We came up with the Doge. Is everyone familiar with the Doge? This picture of the dog? Oh. Okay, so it's weird. I thought more people would know it, but Doge is this weird picture, and people put words over it, like wow, very, such, this. So what we thought we'd do was try and create an application that lets you kind of be like a Twitter feed for Doge. So you can upload an image in one browser window, And we're going to put the Spring Doge stamp on it, overlay some words that we think will be like suitable, and then in another window you can get a feed of what's going on, and using WebSockets we'll update that and give you kind of a live view of what's happening. So I'm going to take the role of a manager here and tell Josh what to do, and Josh is going to be the coder.
Before we do that, sir, can I have a photo? Before we get started, can you guys say open source? Open source. Oh, that's money. Let's see. Good stuff. Okay, carry on.
Oh, that's it. Right, you've already lost some of your bonus there from messing around.
So, I, like most of you, at some point in your careers, am tasked with a Doge project. I'm sure there's a Jira or a GitHub issue waiting for you right now. So we need to build this. It's a very simple application. You drag and dual images to Doge, it modifies it, and then you get to see the results. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first things first, we need to actually kind of start with a simple project here. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit. We've actually got some of this code written. It lives in our Spring Doge project, which you can find at your leisure at github.com/joshlong/spring-doge. Loading. Wow. I am impressed. Okay, so there it is. It's a full project. This is actually more of a full-featured project. It's also just a multi-module project. So really, there's not a lot here. We've only got one Spring Boot app. You know, that's the actual Spring Doge web. Mm-hmm. The rest, the other one is web tier assets like JavaScript and our Vue templates that we've kept in a separate jar so that, in theory, the web team could work on that. That's in, oh, no, I guess that's in Spring Doge Web.
Spring Doge Web is the assets, and Spring Doge is the main application that we're going to write. And then Photo is the manipulation logic that puts those words over and shrinks image down that we're not going to go over. We'll just assume that.
So really, if you're looking
someone gave that to us, that's fine.
So if you're looking for the boot bits, just check out this one jar here, Spring-Doge. That's the money right there. So we're already checked out. Git log. Where are we? Initial commit. Good. So let's look at the project here. Okay. Maven. Re-import. Making sure we have it all. Spring Doge. So the first thing you do when you start to build an application is to, as we saw, we have a basic public static void main, right? Public static void main class that has one bean that we need. This is the client that we defined in the Spring Doge photo library. It's a class that simply lets us manipulate uploaded photos and Dogeify it. It adds such useful things as such.js and so on, right? And other.
Can you see it in the back? Is that big enough? Need it bigger?
Bigger? Yeah. Okay, bigger. See, I have a profile here called bigger, but it's not big enough. Awkward. Okay, 18.
Okay.
19? Oh, yeah. I know how you like it. Okay. Yeah? All right. So basically, this is not particularly interesting. It's just so you know what this is. This is an image that takes photo entities. These are little simple types that we've created to wrap this idea of a photo. It modifies them with image.io, you know, Java auth stuff, nothing, well, Java auth and so on. Nothing particularly fancy, and then it writes out the image for us if we need to. So this is what you're not seeing because you're at a Spring conference, and this doesn't really have anything to do with that. So that's what this is. We've defined our first bean. We need data access, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing we do in a normal application is, do we have anything in here? Oh yeah, we'll come back to that. The first thing you do in a application is start defining the domain, the entities, the types that are sort of core to the business model here. So we're going to move to the next place, which is Git. Oh, I guess we can just go to that here. Okay.
One above.
Sorry. Up. Add domain. Voila. You can follow along at home by following these Git logs if you like. Git reset hard. Just that. Could do. Okay. So. Fingers crossed. There you go. We now have a domain package. So same as before, right? public static void main, add configuration class, our little Doge photo manipulator. One thing I've neglected to mention, but we'll explain this later, this is a servlet initializer class. This is a servlet 3 hook. You don't need it if you don't want, but if you wanted to have any hope of deploying this into a classic environment like a JBoss or a WebSphere or WebLogic. By the way, how many of you guys, and again, no judgment, you're among friends. You're among friends. How many of you guys are on like a WebSphere or WebLogic? I give out hugs, open source hugs. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That's it? Good. Like that's actually really, really good. That's really compelling. How many of you are on Tomcat? Just show of hands. Oh. How many of you are on Tomcat 6? 7? Okay. Good stuff. I can deal with that. So if you wanted to run this in standalone Tomcat, this is what you would need. As you'll see later, this isn't always what you want, so you may not even need this boilerplate class. And in point of fact, this initializer class gets generated for you by that wizard if you chose war, right? So that'll actually be there. So our domain is very simple. It's just a few entities. These are Spring Data Mongo mapped entities, right? So we have a Doge photo. The photo has an ID property. This is very similar to JPA. How many of you have used Spring Data MongoDB? Right on, good stuff. It's a photo. It has a relationship with a user, of course, which is sort of the person who uploaded it. And then the user is just a very simple placeholder so we can demonstrate moving data back and forth across the app. So it's got an ID and a name. And then the photo itself is really just a record that we can use so we can map back to the gridfs file system to find the actual bytes.
Yeah, gridfs is a Mongo file system that comes with Mongo, so we're just going to shove the raw bytes in Mongo and keep a reference to it.
So far so good. We've got two classes that look very similar to JPA, and we've established that we're going to store images somewhere, which is really what you already knew anyway, right? So that works. Do we have any way to test this? I guess we could test it.
Yeah, the next commit should do that.
Git. OK, add repository interface. Oh, yeah. Now we're cooking. Git. OK. Get down. All right. So now we've introduced two Spring Data Mongo repositories. How many of you have played with repository support? This is a cross-cutting concern across all the Spring Data projects. It's one of my favorite features, so do check it out. But the idea is that you have core to Spring Data, this idea of a paging and sorting repository, and behind that you have, or higher up, you have something called the CRUD repository, and then higher up, further up the chain is the repository interface itself, and these just define basic methods for creating, reading, updating, and deleting entities, be they Spring Data Mongo, be they JPA, be they whatever, right? Any kind of Spring Data project that supports it is going to support these interfaces. And these are declarative. The idea is that you can define interface methods, and then based on convention, Spring Data will synthesize the implementation for those entities, right? For those repositories, rather. So here I've got a custom subclass of the paging and sorting repository. The custom subclass provides methods that are specific to MongoDB. But the paging and sorting repository, for example, it may not be specific to any one Spring Data project. It might be something that's supported across all the different projects that support the idea of paging and sorting. So here we have methods for saving a collection of entity type S. We have methods for finding all of a given type T, etc. And we have methods for finding all given a sort condition, sort on first name or sort on last name, etc. There's analogs for JPA. There's analogs for Cassandra and various other projects. So there's that. The nice thing about these repositories, is that taking it a step further, if you want more than just the CRUD style methods that we provide out of the box, you can define your own finder methods, right? So this method says to Spring Data, build an implementation for this method based on the name of the method itself, right? So find one by ID and user is going to find all the Doge photos that are mapped to MongoDB by the first parameter, which is called the ID, and the second parameter, which is the relationship user, right? If you're doing JPA, this would actually create a JPA query. If you're doing MongoDB, this will create a BSON query, This just works. It does the right thing for the backing project. Now, granted, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution for transactions, right? That's why we have specific repository types. We don't want to stuff semantics that don't belong in certain places. Okay, so any questions on this stuff so far? It's important. If you have questions, do tell. Yeah? Okay. I think we can actually, well, show them.
I think we should have. I think the next commit adds a little test.
I like a little test.
That insert some stuff.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Add some sample users.
Good. Good. Okay. Et voilà. Et voilà. Okay, so bless you. So we have our public static void main, and this is Java 8. What did I say about Java 8? It's awesome. Bee's knees, cat's pajamas.
Yeah, this is really nice. This initializing bean is been in Spring for ages and ages, but because it's just got one method, you can call it using the new sort of Java 8 syntax. So here you're just creating one single bean, and this return call here is going to invoke the initialize method on that bean, which we're effectively just using to insert some data.
So here we could just create that bean manually, right? If we wanted to. You guys have done anonymous inner classes before, I'm sure. That's a Java 1.1 thing. But this is really a lot of noise, considering that all we want to do is tell Java to run the bits inside of here, right? And so in Java 8, they introduced the Lambda feature. How many of you are familiar with Lambdas, just so we don't run a skew of people's experiences? So basically what you see here is I can now assign in Java 8, I can say this new one is equal to this. That's the same thing in terms of Java 8's, from the Java 8 perspective, right? The bits inside the curly brackets get run, and those are what are executed. And then the rest of the cruft kind of disappears. This only works for interfaces with one abstract method. Okay, so it is possible in Java 8 to have interfaces with more than one method defined, but only one abstract one, right? So for example, here we have one abstract method, void after properties set. So this is syntax for basically create a class and then implement after properties set, and then the body of this, the curly bracket bit is what's going to be run when that method is called. And taking it a step further, we can just do what we've done here. We'll just return it directly. So does that kind of break it down? A little bit easy to follow now, right? And the benefit is that you can actually fit this stuff on slides and tweets now, which is great for people like us. Okay.
That print line thing's cool as well. The for each that we do at the end is using a method reference. So that's going to, what we're doing is calling the repository, saving some test data, and then at the end of that, doing a find all, which returns everything. I think it returns a list or a collection. For each to loop over that, and then giving a method reference to system.error.println to actually print it out.
Right, exactly. So we could do this craziness, right? And then for every user in the collection, print out the information. But again, Java 8 can see that we're just trying to call a method, so why bother? Just pass in a reference to that method. Shall we? Here we go.
Should run.
Cross your fingers. Knock on wood. May the Doge and the source be with us. Fabu. OK, good. So we've inserted 2 test records, Phil and Josh. You can see that they were sort of enumerated here on the console. Oops. OK, so nothing fancy. Again, we've got 2 repositories. These are interfaces, 2 entities with a few annotations, and an application class. Truly, everything else you see you could throw away. This is still a valid Spring Boot application thus far, right? OK, good stuff. Moving on. What else do we need to do? We need to go over here.
Where are we at on the slides? Do we need a...
Oh, yeah, slides. I'm not advancing the slides because all they're going to do is prompt us to do this.
Oh, OK.
So back to this. Add service layer. Yes. OK. So now we've got our basic domain model sorted out. We've got some test data. We can prove that it's working. This is, again, a Java config class. When this gets started, Spring Boot runs this initializing bean method for us. It is nice to have these repositories. It saves us a lot of CRUD style cruft. But every now and then, you want a higher level service, something that aggregates business functionality above and beyond just the database tier. In this case, we want to have a place to handle both persisting records to the database and writing the images to the file system, one that's hosted on MongoDB, but still a file system. Okay? So we have a service tier here. We're saying, in the constructor, please inject the bean Doge photo repository. Please inject the photo manipulator. And please inject the Spring Data MongoDB gridfs template. This is a template object that, guess what, manages and simplifies accessing and working with Mongo's gridfs. And then the work is pretty simple from there, right? So the get Doge photo just delegates to the Doge photo repository, looks up the record, and then returns an implementation of the photo interface. Again, this is a one-method interface. It's an abstract interface that has one job, which is to return an input stream. And so we define it inline here as a lambda. We're saying return this lambda that then calls the file system.getResource, get the file ref, and then return the input stream. Same thing over here. We have an add Doge photo service that just service method that adds, it manipulates the photo with our manipulator, adds a file ref, gets the input stream, and then writes it to the file system. So again, just basic, Java stuff. Have you guys seen this syntax, by the way? This is Java 7. This is the auto-closable syntax. It says, try, inside the scope of this try block, open up and declare this input stream, assign it to the value that's returned from this initialization statement here, photo.getInputStream. Do whatever you need to do in this block, but then when the block exits over here, close the initialized resource. This is good for all sorts of things, not just input streams and output streams, but JDBC has it, JMS now has it, lots of APIs all over the place support this very convenient idiom. It's a nice alternative to the usual try, open, catch, and then finally close idiom that we're all used to writing for years and years and years. OK, so that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think maybe worth pointing out as well that you'll notice things like the gridfs template, which we're injecting.
Yeah.
We didn't have to configure that.
Oh, that's a great point. Right.
We haven't added anything to our configuration. So Spring Boot's seen that we've got Mongo, Spring Data Mongo on the class path, and it's decided there's not much cost to creating that template bean, even if you're not using gridfs, and we can just inject it and start using it.
And if you have gridfs on the class path, you probably want it. It's an assumption that Boot makes on your behalf, trying to help you out. Yes, sir. So the servlet initializer, the question is the servlet initializer a Spring Boot-ism?
Is it the servlet initializer or the initializer bean that you're talking about? This one on this script, Oh, the initializing bean is a Spring interface that's been there for a long time.
1.0.
So it's normally used as a callback interface that you put on one of your own bean definitions, and it's called after all the properties have been set. So normally you say, I've got this bean, and Spring, when you've configured it, I need to know about it. You'd normally say implements initializing bean, and you'd get this after properties set callback. And what we're doing is slightly subverting it by saying, well, we need to know about after properties set, but we don't actually need any other information.
We're telling Spring Boot to create a bean. It's going to be named populate test data. That's the bean ID by default using Java config. And we're declaring a dependency on the user repository type that we defined elsewhere, right? Spring. This is our interface over here. And this is the property ref, if you will, right? We're declaring a dependency on that. And then inside the implementation of our bean, we're just using it. In initializing bean, like you said, if you had a bean that you defined and you implemented it, it would call back after all the setters have been called, right? Because if you think about it, when Spring constructs your object, it calls the constructor, then calls the setters. And then what? How do you do a constructor with the properties that are passed in through your setter if they're all going to be null at the time of the constructor? So this is like your real constructor, OK? This is your second chance to actually do initialization of the bean for you. Is that OK? OK. Yes, sir? Yeah. You don't need to write it, and if you do, then call us, because that's a problem. It's boring. It'll be done for you by the initializer. So just, if you choose war. In our case, we chose jar, but this happens to be war-friendly.
Yeah, if you're missing it, then it's fairly,
yeah.
I mean, like we had to write this class, and then it's just like extend one of the Spring Boot classes and point it at the thing that it's got to kind of start with. And that normally works for most Spring Boot applications.
Yep. Good stuff. Questions? OK. Moving on. Service. We have a service. We've established that. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, let's add some REST. Now, I have always heard that any application of sufficient complexity eventually sends email. I don't think that's so true anymore. I think that any application of sufficient complexity today will develop a REST API, right? And so that's what we're going to do. And thankfully, Spring Boot makes it just drop dead simple. So we've got our domain here. Nothing has changed there. We've got our service. Nothing has changed here either. Whoops, close that. Now our controller defines a very basic, hello, click, okay. All right, we have a simple Spring MVC controller here. Again, we haven't added anything to this, right? This is the, nothing has happened in initialization. We're just adding a controller. Our Spring MVC is on the class path because we have the Spring Doge Web libraries here, right? And we have the Spring Boot Starter Web support. I'm sorry, Spring Boot Starter Web is what brings Spring MVC. Spring Boot Starter Data MongoDB is what brings everything we need for Mongo. So again, we don't have to worry about tracking down the right dependencies and figuring out which ones work and all that. Our controller looks like this. Okay, we're saying @rest controller, mounted at, exposed at /users on HTTP. We defined a few dependencies here. And we have a few different endpoints here. These are sort of, I don't know, these are pretty boilerplate. You could have done them, you could have probably avoided a lot of this just using Spring Data REST, but we wanted to show you kind of how you could do it.
I'm going to say something here as well. These, I don't know if many people have used this style. A lot of the demos and the sample apps that we've got out there inject Spring Beans using @AutoWired on fields or using setters. And really, generally, we prefer in production to use injection on the constructor. There's a lot of benefits there, like these fields can be final. Yep. So you can't create this controller, even in your tests, without passing in this information.
It's a valid state.
So if it's kind of, there's so many flexible ways to do things in Spring, but if you've got a choice, I would recommend that you use constructor injection for any fields that can't be null, and setter injection if they're optional.
Yeah, I'm just a pretty evangelist. You'll see me every now and then do this, @AutoWired, private Doge service. But remember, I'm doing a demo live, and I'm just trying to get it to work on one slide, on one screen. You should never, ever, ever do this. Never. Not even at home when you're all alone. Just don't do it. It's bad, bad. OK, moving on. Questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, the question is, can the beans be session scoped? Yes, you just, you use the AOP
@scope.
@J, the auto proxy stuff, right? And then
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think @scope just works as.
It should just be fine, yeah. You just inject the bean as usual. You define the bean in the application Java config or your XML as session scoped or servlet scoped, request scoped or whatever, right? It'll work just fine. That's supposed to be. That's a basic feature of the container. OK, so.
Yeah, OK, well.
Great question.
The question is why not just auto-wire straight into the fields? The main reason that I don't like it is it's very difficult to test because you can't bring this. Say you've got a controller's not a great example, but say you've got a service and you want to test it. Often the best way of testing a Spring Bean is to not involve Spring at all, just to create it, and then start hitting the methods that you expect. Maybe you're going to inject some mocks into those dependencies so you can see if things get called. If you just use private fields, then injecting without using Spring is very difficult. So, do you see what I mean? It's like you have to have Spring or use reflection to get at those fields.
So, yeah?
Does that sort of make sense? Oh, you still auto wire?
Yeah.
Sorry, we still are auto wiring, but we're not auto wiring directly into the fields. So if I want to use this class outside of in a test and I don't want Spring involved, I can just go new user REST controller and maybe pass in a couple of mock objects
To the constructor instead.
to the constructor, and that will work.
Sorry?
And you can make the fields final
Right.
as well, which is another benefit.
Making the fields final gives your compiler a chance to tell you that the bean is not in a valid state. You can't initialize it improperly, which is nice, because why do the extra work yourself?
Is testing the only reason?
No, I mean, it's just, do you really want people mucking about with your private fields anywhere? Yeah. Well, but how are they going to put it in there then?
With Spring or Mockito provides.
Oh, right. Well, some frameworks can mock private, it can access private fields, but again,
But more often than not, then your tests have to have the string version of the field. So if you refactor things, if you rename things, your code doesn't necessarily break immediately. You have to run the tests again. So I generally prefer to just try and keep Spring at the edge.
Yep. And you can, again, Spring supports anything, but it's this is just us from lots of shooting ourselves in the foot. Sir? Hey, good point.
Okay, thank you.
So he's saying we teach it in the class, which is good. We should. I like add autowired, but use that inject if you like. He's referring. The question is, can you use JSR 330 javax.inject.inject? By definition, the JSR 330 annotations are, if not comparable, they're a subset of the equivalent Spring annotations. So, I mean, you know, and it's an extra dependency. If you don't have it in your class path already, then who cares? I don't know. Use whatever you want. It's fine. You can use that or JSR 250 at resource for certain kinds of beans. Yeah, it really is just entirely style. Yep.
These are all RESTful endpoints, but if you want to tell boot that you want to return a JSP, what's the difference?
Say that again?
So the question was, if this is a controller that returns a standard view, what's the difference? We'll actually come on to that. We're gonna do some mappings in a little bit that return regular views. Sure, question?
Yep.
And then you're kind of going back in a bit to the mix. So, for example, all these, this code I'm seeing here, that's manually written, right? It's not written by hand.
Yeah, okay, so the question is, because we're checking out code, is boot writing this code? No, you are writing this code. Spring Boot does not do code generation at all, so we've used the starters, and what Spring Boot is doing is doing a lot of the configuration on your behalf. So you'll notice that although we're writing the REST controllers, you know, in a classic Spring app, you might also be configuring Spring MVC, we'd be configuring Mongo, we'd be telling it which database to connect to. So it's all those kind of configuration aspects that Spring Boot's taking care of. So we are writing code, yeah, but we're just writing code. We're not worrying about all the kind of...
The essence is easy to see here.
Yeah.
It's a REST service that does some basic work. There's a service, there's some repositories. The rest of it is just cognitive overhead that you don't have to really worry about. Okay, so carrying on. Basic REST endpoint mounted at /users. We have a few methods here. This responds to HTTP GET calls, basically. So anybody calls /users with HTTP GET is going to receive all the users in the database. This one responds to /users /user ID. This is a path variable. So the variable will be, have a second. Let me sentence. User ID is a path variable. When the user makes a request, when the client makes a request to /users /7 /Doge, it'll look up the user whose ID is 7 and pass that in as a parameter that you can work with here in the method parameters, right? So this is going to be number 7 in this case, okay? And so we're going to use that REST endpoint to look up the information for the user, take the incoming multi-part file upload that we've got here. And again, you don't have to set up multi-part file uploads anymore. It's just it'll just work with Spring Boot, right? It's just already, the libraries are on the class path and everything. And then we build up a response and actually send that back to the client using the response entity here. There's actually a nice builder API that we should be using in 4.1.
Not today.
Okay. Okay, moving on. So the question, sir, what was that? So the method, the parameter names. Oh, the controller. This one? These are beans that are defined elsewhere. So remember we introduced those repositories earlier? We had the domain, Doge photo repository, and user repository, and we have the Doge service. So Doge service is this bean that we defined here in our service package. It's annotated with @service, so it's a Spring bean. It's going to be picked up and registered in the context and made available for injection. User repository is an interface corresponds to the Spring Data user repository interface. As I mentioned earlier, Spring Data is going to take that interface and then actually create an implementation for you. So it'll be done at runtime. You just define the interface and the contract, and then you'll get the bean at runtime.
So our auto-wide by default here is going to look for beans of that type.
Yep.
So as long as there's one and only one Doge service bean defined, it will inject it.
If you like. Is that okay? Okay, good.
Let's move on.
Moving on. Gotta hustle.
Yeah.
Okay, we need, no, not that. Other way around, man. Other way around.
Do you want to run that actually and see if it
Yeah.
works? We could
So,
look at the users.
the magic of boot. It's Bootiful. So, okay. Application started up, same as before. We can see the data being printed on the console there. You'll notice that we're listening on a port 8080 with HTTP here. We haven't really, you didn't see me deploy to Tomcat or anything. You didn't see me do anything. Remember earlier we mentioned that Spring Boot Starter Web brings everything you need to build a web application. It brought Spring MVC. It brought the commons. It brought Servlet 3 API. It brought the file upload API. It brought a whole Tomcat, embedded Tomcat instance for you. So again, when you run this, what you're getting is a Tomcat that's embedded for you, and it gets started up, and Spring Boot looks at your class path, and it looks at the beans that you've defined, and sees, oh, well, this guy probably wants to build a Spring MVC application, so he probably needs Tomcat. So now, localhost users. There you are. So there's a JSON. There's a JSON representation of the data in our endpoint, in our service. Only 2 records. We're keeping it simple. But not bad, right? Time to live for an actual working REST service was just the time it took to write that REST service. No other cognitive overhead. Didn't even have to deploy or download a web server. That's very, very convenient. Okay, moving on. Quickly, views. Somebody asked about views? Well, you're in luck. Okay, add the web assets.
You can jump straight to add views actually.
Okay, will do.
This is a good way of working actually. If you want to do this at home, just commit all your stuff. Then gradually during the day, you can reset it and make it look like you're doing proper work.
Good. So we've added views. This is just templates that we want to render in the client for people to be able to see. We didn't want to keep them inside the Java code because we expect in most setups that you're going to have the sort of the Java types working on the back end, working on the services, working on the REST API. And then for the front end, the web developers are going to want maybe their own little playground, their own little sandbox. And it's nice to keep those assets separate anyway because now you're not stepping on each other's toes when you're trying to do work. So we have a separate module here, Spring Doge-web. This is just a jar, yeah? Yep.
Yeah.
Just a jar. It in turn imports Thymeleaf, right? So it has support for the Thymeleaf templating language, or templating framework, API, whatever. And we've defined those templates based on convention. Again, this is all based on convention. Spring Boot will know to look for those templates inside of source main resources templates, right? Hey. So we've got a couple templates here, nothing particularly fancy. Most of the work in this template is just to set up Angular. And then you can see we're doing sort of mostly Angular style rendering. We're not using Thymeleaf to its full power at all. This is actually a fairly clean, grunt-powered JavaScript application. So we won't dive too much into that. But if you're wondering what all this JavaScript and CSS and all that stuff is, we're using Bower, we're using Grunt, we're using all the sort of normal JavaScript-y toolchain bits from the Node.js ecosystem as well. And then that is going to be available. Since we're importing it into our Spring Doge app as a jar, it's going to be exposed automatically. Thymeleaf will be there. Spring Boot will start up. It'll see that you've got Thymeleaf. It'll register the view resolvers for Thymeleaf. It'll register the view implementation itself, etc. Changes to our code besides importing that jar is just this one bean. Here, we're actually registering a few routes. We want to say, OK, well, when somebody goes to /, show them the view called client. Now remember, the view is resolved using a view resolver, right? So the view resolver is an algorithm. It's a heuristic that Spring MVC uses to locate a template. In this case, it's going to take client, and it'll be source main templates client.html, right? So client in the string will be it'll be combined together, and it'll be munged together, and that'll be the sort of path that it uses to resolve the template for you. And we set that up for you by default. So when we say client here, what we're actually referring to is source main templates client.html.
Yeah, and that's because Thymeleaf is on the class path, and they're the defaults for Thymeleaf. You can use free marker, velocity.
Right. Groovy.
Groovy is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're using Thymeleaf. You can use JSP as an absolute last resort. After you've quit your job, you might, if you have to, and if you quit your job and they still want you to use JSP and there's no way to avoid it, still don't do it. But you can use whatever you want. Is my point. So other than that, do we do anything special?
No, we could run that though. It might actually work. You might need to update Maven.
I'm scared.
I don't know if it's going to work or not without.
Me either. Only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Want to hold hands?
I do. This IntelliJ is pretty good, isn't it? People like it.
Yeah, it's a kind of a thing. Okay, so we routed, a little large. So we routed / to this endpoint, right? And then we routed the monitor, another page called monitor, to this endpoint, this view.
Stick those side by side, and we'll upload an image and show that nothing happens yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
well,
we're gonna.
at least on one side. Do you have an image that you can use?
Oh, I do.
I
I do, Phil. Thank you for asking.
I want something good and amusing.
Okay. We'll start with the gold standard for all images. David Hasselhoff. Excuse me. I sense a slackening of awe, a lessening of trembling in the Hoff's presence. Okay, here we are. Yeah, well, huh? I agree. I'm not sure what he said, but I agree.
He's hustling you.
Okay, so there you go. We saw that nothing really happened, except that we've enumerated the image down here. And that is because we have no way of notifying this monitor what has just happened, right? We need the server to be able to tell the client what happened.
Yeah, so we've done the first half of the app. We've kind of uploaded an image. It's gone into Mongo. We've got that page working, but we haven't got the monitor side of things. We've not got that feed that we want to let people view what's going on. And because we want this to work in potentially different browser windows, even different browsers on different machines, we need a way of triggering that. We're going to go Websockets with that.
I think that'll be fun. Let's see here. Oh, does Maven need a hug? There we are. Good stuff. Okay. So we've added WebSocket MVC configure. And by the way, this interface is standard stuff. This has been around in Spring MVC since Spring 3.1, right? When we added the Java config callback hierarchies. And then here we've added a Spring 4ism. It's a WebSocket configuration, right? So this is going to work using Spring 4, and of course now we're at Spring 4.1, so the story's even better. What we're saying is, at configuration, at enable WebSocket message broker, this tells Spring MVC that we want to support certain endpoints via WebSockets, and going a step further, we want to support Stomp. So WebSockets are, well, they're basically like a Java.NET socket. It's like giving a JavaScript programmer a Java.NET socket and saying, here, build something fun with it, right? It's not really the nicest way to go. So it's much nicer to think about WebSockets in terms of publish, subscribe style messaging scenarios. So in Spring 4, we co-opted some of the great core types from Spring integration that this guy, my friend Gary Russell here, leads. And they became part of the core Spring framework. And then on top of that, we sat a WebSocket implementation, right? So what you see here is WebSocket endpoints being enabled. And then we're enabling Stomp support. And we've enabled sock.js. So sock.js is a JavaScript client. It's also a protocol on the server. It's a superset of WebSockets. And the idea is that I might want to have clients that don't yet understand WebSockets still be able to use my application. And again, I know what you're thinking. Most browsers today are evergreen browsers. They're up to date. They're going to be just fine. There are some browsers that don't quite work yet. I'm not going to name names. I won't point fingers. It's beneath me. I won't do it. But if I were, it might rhyme with Internet Explorer. And again, I won't name names. This is beneath me. But so this is very, very useful. You know. Good news, by the way. Do you guys hear? Internet Explorer is going to have. They're going to be moving to Evergreen in late 2015. So tell your organizations now they're going to have to deal with new code in 2 years, maybe. Okay, so
Should we
anyway.
look at the service where it actually sort of fires a message off as
All
well?
right,
That
yeah,
would be
thank
worth
you.
doing.
So service, which one was it? Doge service?
Yeah.
I forgot. So something needs to actually notify the client that something has happened. So here we,
Is it in the Doge service or is it somewhere else?
controller, I think, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Controller.
Throwing a spanner in the works.
By the
Okay, so we're injecting a new thing in the constructor now, this messaging, simple messaging template that comes in, which is what we can use to kind of trigger messages. So don't forget, there's two halves to this. We've got the side that's going to listen, the JavaScript side, but we've also got to somehow fire events from our application. So
send a message. So this looks very similar to the JMS template and the AMQP template and so on. And in fact, its usage is very familiar as well, right? So we're just saying get Doge photo.
convert and send, there you go.
Messaging, yep, there we are. We're saying messaging, convert and send, publish the message to this sort of endpoint here, topic/alarms. And the message, of course, is going to be a map, which will be converted to JSON because of the message converter that's been configured for us. And then that JSON message will be sent down to the client over the WebSocket, where the client in JavaScript can consume it. I think that's all we need to be able to get going. Obviously, the assets from the JavaScript side are now, they should be happy. There's actually JavaScript code in there to listen to the WebSocket messages. We'll spare you the details there. OK. Up, and away. So now,
Refresh that one, yeah.
refresh for good measure. Let's take our good friend Hoff. The Hoff. Oh, that's so good. So good. Look at that glow. Look at the detail. Look at the hoffiness. It's so right. It's been certified Doge compliant. So see that.
You can always send pull requests if you want to add some new phrases to this app. Well,
Yeah.
Greatly received.
Wow. Very code. So semicolon free. Such groovy. These are the things that you can see Hoff say if you use this app at home. Okay, so that works, right? I think we're actually making pretty good progress.
I think we got.
One more thing. Let's do the Doge, of course. Which one do you want to use? This guy?
Yeah.
Oops. This one here?
Yeah.
Or what about this one?
I don't care.
I do. Okay, well, we'll start with the cute one, because the other one's hideous. Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay, ready? Boom. Lame. Sorry, covered up the wrong side. So, wow, very clean. So organized. Such Spring. Okay, and by the way, I can change the user here. I can say Josh Long, whatever, just to show you there's actually data going back and forth. I'm now going to upload the new image, and we get, wow, very JS. Such non-blocking. Such what? Etc. Okay, or so non-blocking. Such what? Moving on. Now, you guys can feel free to use this code in your own production deployments if you want. It's open source. Okay, so I don't know, Phil, I think we've done pretty good thus far, despite ourselves. This seems to be working. Spring Boot has certainly helped us get across the finish line really quickly. But there's a half an hour, so we couldn't be done yet. Oh, and also, how many of you have read Release It by Michael Nygaard? Really, really fantastic book. One of my favorites. And there's a great punchline in that book, which is code complete is not the same as production ready. There's the last mile between production readiness and being done with your application it's a lot longer than just a mile in most cases. And it's such that you can't afford to ignore that aspect of the application, right? Spring Boot is meant to be production ready. It comes production ready out of the box. And again, production readiness is very much what we're going to talk about when we, in that panel I mentioned earlier. What does it mean to actually build an application and then have it in production, So Spring Boot has great support for security. It has great support for monitoring and for a lot of other stuff. So what we're going to do is introduce some of the support that Spring Boot provides for monitoring and managing applications in production, again, with the same ease and aplomb that we've sort of built this web application and built the WebSockets and all that stuff. We'll look at JMX, we'll look at Crash Hub, we'll look at the HTTP endpoints and the Actuator. Well, do you want to start, actually? Here.
Okay.
Go for it.
Ready? Okay. So what we've added to our application here is not a lot. How do you work this thing? You better show me
yeah,
the
sorry.
POM file is.
Sorry.
I still use Eclipse. I'm a Luddite, so.
It's all good. all good in the hood, whatever works. Did we update already?
Yeah, I want to show you the POM file if I can.
Command Shift N. There you are.
Okay.
I'll drink this coffee.
So we've added one additional dependence. Oh my God, you got natural scrolling as well. What are you, some kind of idiot? Okay, so we've added one dependency, which is, if I can find it, the Actuator dependency. So this is an extra set of classes, and Spring Boot will see it and auto-configure some more things for you, mainly more endpoints.
And what does an actuator give us? What is the point of it?
Well, actuator, I think it's a mechanical term. It transfers a small amount of energy to a large amount of energy. So the small amount of energy is our 2 lines in our Maven POM. A large amount of energy is all the monitoring and metric tools that I'm about to demonstrate.
Right.
If you can start this out.
Oh yeah. So basically, it's the 1-inch punch of production readiness. Command. Okay. Go go go.
I can use a web browser, so I should be okay after this.
The Doge.
So we've still got our app running. If we can see some of the extra endpoints that have been added. So here you can see that as it started up, we've got some additional things that have been added, things that we didn't write ourselves,
Right.
like mapping, info, trace, and beans. And if we jump to a web browser, we can actually kind of paste some of these things in.
Command or Control. Sorry. There we
Okay. So if I hit like a /beans endpoint, oops.
Awkward.
Turns out I can't use a web browser. So if I hit /beans, we get an error page.
Beans.
If I type /beans, we get a full JSON structure of all the beans that we've got in our application context.
Let's do this.
Oh, that's better.
Pretty printed.
What else have we got? You want info
All
is
right.
another example.
Okay. Beans. So this is all the beans in the context. Yeah. Info. Is that empty? Yeah, it's empty. ENV.
Log, trace. Metrics is a good one.
Yeah. ENV is your current environment and your system properties and so on. Metrics. Yep. Metrics is really convenient. This is my all-time favorite.
This shows you, like, this is a graphite compatible format as well, so you can pull this into any logging systems you've got, and it gives you like counters of the number of times certain endpoints have been hit. So you can see here that we've hit the env endpoint 1 time already because we looked at it. Maybe if we refresh a few times, we'll see.
So this is, I'm going to actually refresh the metrics endpoint. You can see that one here, maybe. No, you can't yet. There it is. So this is the metrics endpoint. It says we've hit it 2 times, and we got a status code of 200 back, right? So if I refresh this, as much as I possibly can, you'll see I've got 22 hits, each with 200 status code, right?
Yeah. So these kind of things are the kind of things that you might want to add to your app, kind of over and over again. The one that I particularly want to demonstrate, if I can,
Props or?
No, is health.
Oh yeah, do it.
So health is a really nice endpoint that you can just ping to find out the status of your app. We're using a later version of Spring Boot here, so we actually get database statistics as well. So you can see that our app is up, which is kind of like, okay, if it's running, it's up. And also our Mongo database is up.
So are these conditional on the type of database you're using?
Yeah. It depends on the database that you use. If you throw in MySQL, you'll get a different.
Like JPA will give you a
different endpoint there.
Yeah. This is Spring Boot. All of it. This is all the magic of Boot. Yep.
Yeah. The question was is this added recently? And the answer is Spring Boot is providing that service. The later bit that I was talking about was the database statuses are new in the 1.2 milestone of Spring Boot. If you use an earlier version, you get a slightly different JSON structure.
And remember, Spring Boot, of course, sits on top of Spring MVC, so I understand why we should be clear where Boot is chiming in and where it's a Spring project. But generally, Boot is a great place to bring together all these other Spring projects, and you can just think of it as Spring. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How can we secure those endpoints? Because they're obviously helpful, but we don't.
Oh.
That's a very good question. I
Fabulous.
wish we'd thought of that. Yeah. You've got 2 options basically. You can.
How do you secure it? Is the question.
The question is, how do you secure those endpoints? Out of the box, we don't expose sensitive information. If you use Spring Security, that's one option. And the reason we've kind of picked the same port structure is that it works really well with cloud deployments, where you often don't have 2 ports available. But if you used, if you've seen like Dropwizard's got a similar concept, but the endpoints are on a different port, and you can do the same thing with Spring Boot. You just have to put a thing in your application properties, and then you can have your monitoring things on a port that you don't expose, and you can keep your, your public side separate.
And should we show them? I think we're going to show them the properties later. Yeah. We'll also come back and we'll show you how to lock down endpoints one by one.
Yeah.
In the config stuff.
I want to quickly try and demo. We did this demo.
Do you want to do this now, or can we do the other stuff first and then do the? I want to do like crash hub and all that.
All right.
Okay. So. Yep.
Can we add the actuator in an existing application with just that dependency and have the extra information?
The question is, can you add Actuator to an existing classic Spring application, I guess, without Spring, the rest of Spring Boot? The answer is no. It depends on the auto configuration logic. So you need to use Spring Boot if you want the Actuator.
Right.
But it's pretty easy to add Spring Boot to an existing app if that's what you need to do.
So we've got that endpoint there. Those endpoints are exposed through REST. They're giving us valuable information about the state of our application. We can get that same information elsewhere. So I'm going to go to, where am I going to go? Where did it go? Maybe this one, yep.
Yeah, this is another example of how you could potentially secure it. You don't need to necessarily expose it using the web. You can use JMX if you
And this is
prefer.
all done automatically with the endpoint, with the actuator on the class path. So here's the health endpoint, yeah. Operations, get data, there it is, status up, Mongo, whatever, etc. So you can tailor all this stuff as you like, right? It doesn't have to be, you can expose it through JMX, you can expose it through REST. My favorite way is to use crashd, which we've also got in the class path here. So you go to the Spring Doge jar, you can see I've added Spring Boot Starter Remote Shell. And this is going to actually set up something called crashd. By the way, did we focus on this? We have on the Spring Boot team 2 PhDs, 2 doctors, and a lot of really smart people. In fact, most of the Spring team has worked on it. And it just tickles me to death to think that somebody got a Jira issue saying we need good ASCII artwork or the people won't care. So this was done by somebody for you. Now, if you're wondering, yes, you can turn it off, but I don't know why you should. There's no good reason to turn it off. So anyway, moving on. You see here, we've got, where's the password?
Oh, you've set it in the properties, haven't you?
Oh yeah, fair enough, okay. Yeah, so I've set a simple password here called Spring1. And so what you do is you do SSH minus P 2000 user at 127.0.0.1. Password is Spring1. Log in, good ASCII artwork, a hallmark of a good, well-crafted application. And then you've got a shell here. So you can say, OK, I could use some help here. Tell me what I can do. Well, hit help. And you get the same kind of information as you had before. For example, health, metrics, for example. Gives you the matrix, except it's now live. So if I go here, whatever. We don't have enough time to show all that stuff. But basically, you have the metrics here. Quit that. I can do system prop ls, show all the properties. My favorite is the dashboard. You hit dashboard, and you get Java top. Look at that. Insight into what the running application.
So this is you are actually SSHing into your running
right.
Java application. This is not, this is just pure Java.
Yeah, I just SSH'd into my Spring Boot application. And this is a session that's provided by Spring Boot. You've got the JVM memory here. Again, we're using Java 8. Sorry for screen size, it's a little weird, but there you go. I'm using Java 8, and here in Java 8, there's no more permgen. It's called metaspace now. It's got a different function. So that's what you're seeing here. But if you're using Java 6 or 7, and again, 6 is the end of life, but whatever. If you've got Java 6 or 7, you'll get the permgen as well. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff, but all this just gets added for you automatically. Now, back to the demo. The health endpoint.
Oh, right, OK. So we've done this demo in a meetup locally, and we work at Pivotal Labs, and Pivotal Labs drink a lot of coffee, so they've got a lot of old coffee machines kicking about. So the demo that we did before, we actually tried to rig up a coffee machine to the endpoint so that when it went down, the thing would make us a cup of coffee. Unfortunately, it's quite hard to take a full espresso coffee machine through airport security. So
Not that we didn't try.
You're going to have to use your imagination a little bit. But what we're hopefully going to do is we've got a Raspberry Pi device here and a little LED on it and a sound output. And we're going to try and we're going to try and get this thing to monitor our running application and hopefully detect when it goes down.
Okay.
So
Kick it off.
we have. Oh, where's the terminal gone?
Oh, just on full screen. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare it.
Okay. So which one of these is the SSH?
Oh.
That one. Okay, so Raspberry Pis are quite slow, so I'm going to try and kick this off.
So what is this going to do now?
And while it's loading, we'll go and take a look at the code.
By the way, you guys learning something at this point? Is this pretty good? Is this pretty cool? Would you guys go home and use it? Yeah, me too. That's cool.
Okay, so this is, we're actually running a Spring Boot. Spring Boot comes with a little CLI application that you can run scripts. So this is a script that we've written,
Groovy.
a Groovy script. It does a couple of things. It downloads this Pi4j library, which is something to control the pins. It uses Spring Web, and then we're going to use pin 1, which is the coffee machine, okay? We're going to inject a URL from a property that we pass in, and then every second or so, we're going to run this check loop.
Against the health endpoint.
And we're going to use a REST endpoint to kind of ping that health endpoint, and if it goes wrong, we're going to raise alert, and which should play a sound, hopefully, and light this thing up. So let's see how we're doing.
I'll hold it, and you get
Okay.
the microphone near the speaker.
We're still starting up. Okay, so you can see it's slow, 41 seconds, but we're up and running. No. Oh, no. Okay, something's gone wrong. It shouldn't have gone down just yet. Let's see what's happened.
What happened?
I don't know. No route to host. Oh, well, okay, it's worked. But maybe I haven't got a...
Paste that URL in the browser.
Hang on.
What's the okay, quick. Let me.
What's the IP address? Check your IP address a sec. They're in the SSH. Going to the.
Awkward.
No, that's you.
Oh, sure.
192.20.10.2. Well, I assure you it worked.
Well, no, here, 10.4, remember?
Okay, hang
Quick.
on.
Do 10.4.
All right, let's try again. You got 40 seconds to wait.
Yeah. And I'll go introduce the auto config while we come back to this.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Should have tested this.
Wouldn't be a demo.
All right, so it's starting up again. Do you want to talk about
Yep.
auto config?
So whilst that's starting up again, you may be all wondering about all the magic and witchcraft that's happening here. Oh, by the way, first things first, we've been deploying everything to an embedded Tomcat. That's what you get by default. If you use the Spring Boot Starter Jetty dependency and then exclude the Spring Boot Starter Tomcat one, you'll get Jetty, embedded Jetty instead. We have a servlet initializer. So if you change the packaging in our application to become WAR, W-A-R instead of jar, you'll get a perfectly usable Maven WAR that you can deploy to a classic environment like a JBoss or a WebSphere or WebLogic or whatever. But if you want to just do embedded, public static void main centric, process centric web applications, that's what we have here. You can also deploy this to a cloud. So there's actually a little script called cf.sh which deploys to Cloud Foundry. Now, back to what I was saying. You may be wondering how all this stuff works. All this time we've been assuming that certain things were going to work. And this is all through the magic of auto configuration. So auto configuration is what we saw earlier when we turned on that @enable auto config. Auto configuration basically tells Spring Boot to, come on, Daddy needs some code. There you go. Auto configuration tells Spring Boot that we want it to help us whenever possible. The way it does that is it looks at when it starts up, it looks at a file called spring.factories, which is inside of the meta-inf directory of these various modules that are on the class path. And it finds a property here called org spring framework boot autoconfigure @enable autoconfiguration equals, and then a long list of common delimited classes like AOP autoconfig and rabbit autoconfig and message source autoconfig and JPA and FreeMarker and JDBC and JMS and JMX and JTA and Elasticsearch and Mongo and mobile, security, solar, velocity, whatever. I mean, there's everything you can possibly imagine. There's probably something here for you. And I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would I want all those classes running at the same time on my application? Especially if does that mean I have to have all these types in the class path? And thankfully, it does not. So if you take a look at the rabbit auto configuration class, you can see that there's a lot of blood in the water here, right? A lot of compiler errors. These types don't exist on the class path. Spring Boot's going to attempt to load it. It's going to find the @configuration class annotation, and then it's going to evaluate these conditions. These conditions are provided by Spring Boot. They build on top of the Spring 4.0 @conditional annotation, which gives Spring a way to say, based on some condition, is Mercury in retrograde? Is the NASDAQ above whatever? You know, dev null, give me dev random. Whatever that condition is, I want to evaluate it. And if that condition evaluates to true, then evaluate the body of the bean definitions, or like, for example, individual beans, or the whole configuration class. So the condition here is the rabbit template type, which comes from Spring AMQP, and the AMQP channel type on the class path. If they're on the class path, then evaluate these bean definitions. So you've seen we've been adding features just by adding things to the class path. That's how this works. This is just a regular Java configuration class with bean definitions that are guarded by basically the runtime equivalent of an if-def. Okay? This is very powerful, and it also gives us a place to veto things, right? So we have properties that are all over the place that you can use to sort of reset things. You can actually, there's a whole bunch of properties that you can see by going to localhost, like this guy here, localhost, config, props. These are all the properties that apply to the currently running Spring Boot application. These are properties, for example, if I wanted to disable the endpoint for the metrics, I could create a property in my application.properties or any property file that Spring sees, says that's called endpoints.metrics.sensitive, or sorry, endpoints.metrics.enabled equals false. And suddenly, that endpoint would just fall off the map. You wouldn't see it anymore, right? So you have the ability to override everything Spring Boot is doing through the convenient, judicious use of property file plugs, if you want, right? And this endpoint actually tells you the properties that are supported for this current running Spring Boot application. Yeah. No, this is just Spring Boot in general. This is how all this stuff works. So, the what? Yeah, that's part of Actuator. Yeah.
So the question was, is /config props provided by Actuator? And the answer is yes. It's if you don't have Actuator, you don't get /config props.
Convenient, right? So you can write these yourself as well, right? You can create a jar, stick a spring.factories property in there, add a property with the class that you want to have auto configuration loaded. And in your organization, if you want to standardize the behavior of your applications across the enterprise, you've got 5 different teams, and they all need to have the same security and metrics and endpoints and all that stuff. Define an auto config. It's a good way to publish a consistent framework across the teams in your enterprise. And that way they don't have to just add it to the class path, and suddenly this stuff works. You get the endpoints, you get the right, maybe you want to install Spring Security and have it connect to a well-known LDAP provider or something in the organization, or whatever. This is the place to put it. And it's because it's auto-config, you can even say, well, if the user of the library has already defined a bean of this type, then don't bother. But if they haven't, then define the bean that we have. So you can actually make it so you provide a default, but they can override it, right? This is how we work all over the place in Spring Boot. Questions on that?
Is it running?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's happy?
Okay.
Ready?
Can you get the video camera on it, maybe?
Okay, here we go.
You're going to have to do 2 things at once. I'm going to...
Me?
Yeah, you're going to have to kill the app.
Wait, actually, can we go this way?
I'll tell you what, I'll hold the thing. All right, here we go. No, you need to look at this, Josh.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you need to see this.
Okay.
All right, hang on. Okay, you got it?
Uh-huh.
Here we go.
Can I get, okay.
Can you get it? Here we go. We're going to drop this thing. That will stop it, I suppose, if we did drop it.
No, this actually drops very easily. So, but it's safe. Okay, wait.
All right, hang on. Here we go. You got it? All right.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to take off. So what should I do?
You got to stop the app. You got to kill the app or Mongo.
In IntelliJ, yeah?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Imagine that this is a coffee machine, and imagine that it didn't go wrong earlier.
Yeah.
And this is the first time you've seen it.
Where's my editor?
Come on, man, what are you doing?
Hold on. Gee whiz. Restart. Okay, start. Active to editor tabs. No! There's sadness in my heart. Tool windows.
We really ought to have practiced this a bit more.
Shh, quiet you. Okay, you ready? I'm going to kill this guy. Oh, God. And, okay. Ready?
Yeah.
You got your speaker next to the...
all right, hang on.
Closer.
All right.
Selfie. Thank you.
It's more impressive with a coffee machine.
Yeah.
But it takes longer to set up as well.
Well, that was fun and educational.
How long we got? We got about 3 minutes. Are there any questions, like last minute questions?
Because if not, we have something else to talk about. No,
Yeah,
just kidding.
Christina.
If you have to, but why?
So the question was, we're using embedded Tomcat. How would you deploy that in production? And there's two ways you could do it. You can either convert that project to a WAR and drop it into Tomcat as you normally would, or you can use the Maven plugin and do java-jar, and that will run that complete application.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for coming, just in case you're leaving. Thank you very much.
Thank you.